I've been in the energy industry 22 years, the last 10 of which have been at Haven. Before that I was with Eastern Electricity, which was the old regional electricity company, and I also worked for Macquarie Bank in their smart metering business. So Haven Power is an electricity supplier we only do to businesses, and we don't do domestic for a myriad of reasons that make my life a little bit easier than it would be if we were just doing domestic. And we supply, I think we're the 5th largest business supplier in the country. We supply about 20 terawatt hours of power and gas. We have another part of our group that does gas, and we are doing some, as part of the whole group, we're doing some truly interesting and innovative things that I'm going to talk about today, and with a certain amount of trepidation, because I'm going to talk about some things that I know about. I know just about enough on to talk about. If you get too many complicated questions, I might have to sort of shuffle my feet a little bit when it comes to it, but certainly, hopefully, some things that will interest you in what I'm talking about. And also tonight, I'm looking forward to tonight's event, and it's quite handy because it's about 500 yards from where I live. It's a very nice setting, and if the weather holds up on us, it's a very nice place to sit outside as well. So as Drax, so Haven Power is part of Drax Group. So for any Super fans, it's not the chap from Guardians of the Galaxy. It just happens to be it's a village in Yorkshire that has a very large power station next to what used to be an awful lot of coal mines and a couple of big rivers that help out a lot. So as you can see here, we're purpose-led. So we're about enabling a zero carbon, lower cost energy future. And I think, because we miss it out sometimes, I think the comma's in the right place. But as for the pedants in the room, I think there should be a comma there. We get that right. What that really means for us, because that's a strap line for a company, what it means for us is being a key part of the future energy system, and like we've talked about a little bit, and I'm sure we'll see as parts of the things that you're going to talk about in the next couple of days. It's about renewable energy, but it's also about flexible energy generation, because renewable of itself is not quite enough, because I'm not quite at the line, when the sun doesn't shine and the wind doesn't blow, but there are times when there won't be enough renewable generation, so we need some flexible generation to help us at least through that transition. So in the context of Drax, we're playing our part in 3 different ways. I might have a go. From a generation perspective, start with that. We're the big power plant up in Yorkshire. We are statistics we've seen is the IPCC, so that we need 85% of our power is going to come from renewables by 2020. So that means the 15% that's left needs to come from somewhere, and that will be from flexible generation like biomass, pumped storage, some gas, and not by coincidence, that's exactly the range of technologies we have within our group. And we are also working very hard on carbon capture and storage, which I'll talk a little bit about as I go through. We work very heavily on energy management with our customers, so that might be things as simple as smart metering, but we also help them decarbonise by installing technology such as solar PV. We are also both working hard to research and to implement some of the emerging technologies like battery storage and electric vehicles. And electric vehicles is a key point for us. We were talking about it a little bit earlier, and one of my colleagues, Adam, is going to give an update on that at the dinner tonight. So I'll try not to steal too much of his thunder, but he's he talks very eloquently about it and certainly very, very passionately about it. And we think our part in that, bearing in mind we have about 400,000 sites, business sites across the UK, is on workplace charging, which we think will be a key part of the EV infrastructure as we roll it out. We were discussing a little earlier about range anxiety and things like that. Well, there are 2 places that we definitely spend a lot of our time, at home and at work. So that's going to be, I think, a key part about how we enable that. I've got it in my notes, that journey, I can't avoid one pun as I go through this, so that journey as we transition to electric vehicles. And then on the partnership basis, which I'm still in a perfect place for, so we talk both our customers and with industry experts. So the energy industry traditionally has been like a commodity price-based thing. It's about the cheapest. It's certainly the case in domestic. Who's the cheapest? Who's the cheapest price? We're working hard with our customers to turn that around a little bit, so that it's about more of a partnership. And partnership can be an often overused word, but what that means, some more of an enduring relationship that is not a 1 to 2 year price base. You just do it. Hopefully, you don't get the bills right and don't manage debt kind of thing. into a much more enduring relationship where we can add some of our expertise. You'll see from some of the innovation pieces that I'm going to talk about, there's a lot of fantastic engineering capability within our group, and almost everything that we do on a big scale has some application for our customers in a smaller scale, and that's where we really want to work with them to help them. And then from an industry perspective, so I'll come and talk about this, some really exciting things we're doing in carbon capture and hydrogen. And hydrogen's the bit where I'm really hoping that's not on someone's list, because I've got enough information about it, but that might be where I test my level of understanding as we go through. So from a generation perspective, I talked, we've got a range of technologies in our group. Drax Power Station was a coal power station built in the 70s and 80s. Provided at its peak 7% of the UK's electricity, baseload, generating all the time. It's brilliant to see. They do a fantastic tour. It's on almost unimaginable scale when you think about it. There, the boilers are 100 metres high. There's at times we had, in the dark days of coal, we had millions of tonnes of coal outside, and that's been a really interesting point about coal to biomass, because coal you can leave it outside, it can get wet, you don't have to do anything with it. Biomass is a little trickier, it's explosive, so you have to be a little bit more careful about what you do with it. But so today we are the biggest decarbonisation project in the UK. We provide about 12% of the UK's renewable power, and our biomass comes from sustainably managed, predominantly sustainably managed forests in the US. It's from residues, it's from waste, and this is probably a subject that has a little bit of emotion around it. We can't burn trees, it's too expensive. They're used for much more things. And the forests that we work with, they're, again, on a scale that, without seeing, it's quite hard to imagine. That we have forests that we work with in Mississippi and Louisiana that are bigger than East Anglia in single forests. They're not. It's not like, you know, the new forest down south. They're just on a different scale, and they're managed, and we deal with like the thinnings that come out of it and those sorts of things. And then, so additionally to biomass, we have some pump storage and hydro. So at the beginning of the year, we purchased those assets from Scottish Power. I can never get the spelling right, but Crookham Power Station, which is a pump storage asset. So pump storage is largely massive reservoir in the hills, turbines underneath them, press a button, a few seconds later it's generating at its full rate. It's basically the best analogy I can come up with, and I'm going to do myself a bit of a disservice in a room full of academics, is basically pulling the plug out of the bath and just shoot straight out, generates. And historically that would have been like an arbitrage point, so you generate when the power is expensive, and then you pump the water back up to the reservoir when it's cheaper. Nowadays, actually, what we use it predominantly for is supporting National Grid in balancing the network. So some of the things like reactive power and making sure, and frequency response, making sure the network operates in the right band. And then we have two hydro plants, one of which is very large, Galloway, which is 109 megawatts. And that has been a really interesting development, because we've become experts in fish as we've done that. Because one of the things that comes with a very long run-of-river hydro, it's got five or six, about 20 megawatt stations you go through, is you can't just run it whenever you want, because the fish are coming up the stream and you have to keep the levels maintained, or you have to pump at times so that they don't flood and things like that. So it's long gone are the days of a lot of moving coal, putting it in a boiler, burning it, away you go. It becomes a lot more complicated, and we have almost a microcosm of things that are happening on the national grid, even within our own generation fleet. Go on. So from an energy management point of view, Haven, we try to lead from the front here. Starts at home / the office. So we have both aimed to showcase to our customers what's possible, and in the context, I think, of some of the things that have been mentioned so far, we might talk about. We've experienced some really interesting challenges in trying to retrofit new technology to an existing building. And the Haven building we've got, which is on an industrial estate just outside Ipswich, it's not that old, it's 2009, 2008, so it's not like it's an old building. And either the architect or our old chief exec had perfect foresight, because the pitch and the direction is perfectly south-facing. I think it's the perfect pitch for the maximum amount of solar that's possible. So like I say, we've tried to showcase it, because if we're going to try and help our customers, then living it ourselves is important. So we've installed LED lights right through the building. We've deployed, that's 80 kilowatts of solar. We have, that's just the corner of it there. So that's a container with 80 kilowatt hour battery storage. And we have, as you can see there, that's our group chief executive with our ever so delicately branded electric vehicle. There's almost a square inch somewhere that doesn't have our branding on it. And I may have slightly ambitiously promised it's going to be at the dinner tonight, so if anyone wants to have a whiz around, then we'll have our EV there for who really wants to have a go. It's a gravel car park, so we might be a bit careful down at the hotel, but we can have a look in that. And as I say, it's living and breathing it for our customers is not, it's not just a kind of strap line, because we've experienced some surprising challenges as we go. It's the first time our landlord, well, in fact our landlord's agent, had ever had to consider this kind of thing. So that was quite a process, even getting the permission to do it. It's our money, you know. I don't think we can't take it. We can take bits of it with us when the lease runs out. So some of it's to their benefit, but it was still a lengthy process. We had to get the PV installed before the subsidy scheme finished, and that wasn't a surprise to us, but it was still a bit of an effort to get it all in. Definitely wasn't a surprise to us, because that's not exactly a great thing as an energy company not to know when the subsidy scheme was running out. And it's created new problems for us that we anticipated but didn't know quite what they'd be like. So we have 4 charge points, and that was fine because we had one delicately branded vehicle at the time. Now we've got 6 or 7 people that come to work every day in their EV, and we can manage that because you can get an app from ChargePoint and that can queue, it can tell you when they're. So it's all right. But when we start to getting double that, or 10 or 20, our challenge is going to be how we put more charge points in, and we're going to need to do that in a way that isn't very expensive by getting additional capacity from the DNO, which might not even be available, as I'll talk about shortly. So I think that's where both our experience in doing it and what the services we can offer to our customers is to help, because that gets complicated very quickly. The PV will help because we'll be generating at the time when the increased demand, but what if that drops when it's not quite as much sun as we need? What if the battery's been used for another event? We need to have a really clever optimization capability. Good thing for us and hopefully for our customers, not least because as you might have seen, energy services in my job title, so it's my P&L to try and sell this to all of our customers, is our experience in managing the generation assets that we've got, the diverse portfolio, and our understanding of the markets will help. We were just, we were talking again earlier with the journalist from the local paper about the challenges with data and people's understanding about it and technology and all the things that happen. And it has to be made simple. So I think we can go to that credibly because we've got our experience of doing it, but if we can make it simple for our customers, then it'll be easier for them to embrace these kind of technologies. We have another office in Northampton where we've done similar things, but we've also taken that a step further just to try it out. We've actually, in the process of selling the PV we've installed to a local community scheme in Oxford, who will then operate as a share safe, so our employees can buy shares in the PV that's on the roof of where they work. And so we're trying to kind of explore every option that might come across, because that might be a viable option for some of our customers to do the same. And then from the innovation point of view, thank you. So bioenergy, carbon capture, usage and storage. We've taken the U out because we've gone with BECCS because that's just a bit easier to work with. The concept here is carbon capture and storage, but doing it in combination with the renewable generation we have at Drax. So we believe we can get to genuinely carbon negative energy from that point. We have a prototype plant at the moment. It captures a tonne of carbon every day. Where we are starting to move to is to actually rejuvenate a program that we had back in 2014, 2015, which was when the government was looking at at that time they were looking at putting money into funding and subsidising carbon capture and storage, which was essentially, because of where the plant is up in the north, we can run a pipe basically out to expired gas fields in the North Sea. So we would sequester the gas, scrub it, take out as much as we can before it goes, and then the carbon that's left would then be basically pumped out and stored in expired gas fields in the North Sea. And then at the same time, we're also exploring large-scale hydrogen, and I'll come on to it in a little bit more detail shortly, but that's working with partners with National Grid and Equinor, which used to be Statoil, which is the Norwegian state gas and oil company. It's very important for them because they supply, I think it's something like 40 to 50% of the UK's gas. So investing in hydrogen as a replacement for gas in the future is a key part for them. And it's so we'll have the opportunity again to do hydrogen. If we can combine it with the carbon capture and storage, we'll be able to do it in a cleaner way than hydrogen is produced now. So I confess I have had a crash course in hydrogen in the last few days. But at the moment, you basically the process of capturing hydrogen at the moment, you just vent the CO2. So it's not clean. It's very expensive. But we have opportunities in the future. Let's say if we can do capture the carbon, if we can potentially use excess renewables to power the facilities to capture the hydrogen, then we will have opportunities then to use it in future states, such as it'll certainly be an opportunity for us to replace gas in heat. It will be a way to be used to generate a replacement for gas in power generation and on the transport side of things. It's more a 2030, 2040 goal, but a very exciting opportunity for us. The third leg that I mentioned was partnerships, and I confess, I've got the cricket on there, this would have been a better slide. Were we still in the Ashes? So we both supply and sponsor Edgbaston Cricket Ground, Warwickshire County Cricket Club, and that's an example. It's a very simple example. We supply them with renewable energy. We are working with them to understand their site usage. Sports grounds are a fascinating customer to have, not least because my team in our business is responsible for trying to forecast what our customers are going to use. And to give an example of Edgbaston, they use about 50 kilowatts during the day, every day of the year. And then on match days, particularly on day-night, that shoots up to 900 kilowatts. And that means a lot of things. It means they've got a massively expensive grid connection because they have to pay for that peak. But it also means they have much larger bills. So the opportunity to understand how they can better manage that is a real opportunity for them. They're very, very adventurous. I think they plan to be the most sustainable, not just cricket but sports ground in the UK. They do an awful lot of sourcing from all their suppliers are generally from local sources. So really, they're really adventurous in that space and great to work with. And we got our sports SIP just in time for the Ashes, which was quite nice. And then SES Water, which is, I'm going to say Sutton and East Surrey. I'm going to get it right. So they're a water company in the south. And this is one where we've gone a bit further. It's more complicated. This is about helping them electrify their vehicle fleet. And they've got 120 of their own vans. So we have done a whole suite of opportunity there. We've through a leasing agreement, so we're taking 10 electric vehicle vans from us. Charge points, we're rolling them out more widely. Telematics, so really offering the whole package for them to understand how they can make that transition from what is now petrol and diesel over to electric vehicles. And I might have mentioned before that we definitely, if we're placing a bet on what we're going to do with our customers in the future, it's going to be on electric vehicles being a big part of what they're doing and workplace charging. And then for industry experts, there's a zero carbon project in the Humber region, so that's back to where Drax, the power station up in Yorkshire, flowing out to the the Humber and the ports, and there's a huge amount of heavy industry up in that region. So we're looking there at a multi-billion-pound decarbonisation project. So that's with Equinor and National Grid Ventures, and that will see the carbon from our plant, but also the opportunity to build a hydrogen plant. And I've got a video with perfect, slightly funky 80s music on it just to go on the slide, just to talk that through a little bit. As Justine said, we're also very pleased to be working with the Sustainability Institute in various different ways, conference earlier in the year, today, tonight, and some of the other things that we can do from a technology perspective. This is the video bit now. So this will be, we'll see, fingers crossed. It's on the next slide, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, there we go, I reckon. Yeah, just there. There we go. So a couple of things that were flying on that video that not seen that I think are quite cool. I might have mentioned it's good fun to go around the power station and just see what's going on there. And there's a couple of stats that I love, which is there's because it's originally a coal plant, they had the flue gas desulfurization, which was to combat the issue of sulfur and acid rain in the 80s. There's two pipes, one that comes out and one that goes in, that are bigger in diameter than the Channel Tunnel. Which is pretty cool, and to get both the biomass and there's still a little bit of coal kicking around in there into the boilers, you have to grind it into a fine dust, and you have these mills that are essentially, they have I think they're like a couple of tons ball basic huge bearings that whiz around like that, grinding it up, and they're the whole thing's on a floating floor. It's quite cool because you can stand one leg on it or not. Largely because if it was a solid floor, it would just shake the whole thing. I think it's like 4 or 5 on the Richter scale. It would just shake the whole building down. So there's a couple of good stats. We might do we do a lot of school tours, so those are the kind of things that give the 8 kids fine. But you also saw there the transition to biomass was a really fascinating one as well. So we flipped over a couple, some massive domes, because I mentioned the biomass is slightly more combustible than coal. So there's no flat surfaces anywhere in any of that supply chain. So we had to we've invested £700–800 million in that transformation. New rail stock, because again coal's transported in open trucks, so they're all closed. It all drops out. Everything is on a sloped angled surface because you get the smallest build-up of dust, and then it can just go. I don't know if any of you have seen there. Npower had a plant down in Tilbury on the Thames that caught fire for that very reason, because of the kind of storage of it. So we've had to taken 10 years to get to the point where we know that we can kind of safely handle it, manage it, all of the transformation to make that all work. But yeah, so it's been a really fun. And the domes, with another video where it shows where they've run up there. They were put up in just a few hours. I think they're maybe 60–70 metres high. Again, it's one of those ones where they blow the whole thing up and then blast it with the must be concrete to go around inside. And I realise I'm teetering into familiar territory for everybody else but me in the room, so I'll stop there. But again, our thing is how do we take that engineering capability that's on a massive scale, and it's looking at things that will genuinely transform not just what we do as a business, what the UK does, but hopefully the world. So the world's first net zero. If we can start transforming what we do up in that region where there's all that industrial plant, that's also something that has benefit all around the world. So it's really exciting. I mean, it's 10 years from now. So it can, the horizons of 2030 feel a long way off, but it's very exciting to be a part of that. Might go on to say, and then there's the other end of the scale. So that's talking about hydrogen in the grid. What we do, we're also working with and looking at a microgrid project. Ransomes Europark is an industrial estate in the outside of Ipswich. It's where we're based. We're working with a company called Pixie Energy, who are leading on that, supported by County Council and Anglian Water. And that's us trying to work through some of the issues that that are there. So Ransome's Europark, it's export constrained, which means we've got the opportunity to put generation in there, but we've not got the demand at the right times. The DNO's got issues in bringing it off site, so we are trying to work on a project where we would find innovative ways to marry that up. So we've got a bit of our own generation and demand to mix into our own building. We supply a number of the sites on that and the customers on that site. There's 11 car dealerships. So EVs, I've used that word about 15 times now. But again, some of the challenges there, and trying to find a way to work through it. So we're starting with the park there. We're working with all of the businesses around the industrial park, and we then can take some of the output there to UK Power Networks, the local DNO, and then we'll expand it out. Anglian Water is part of the project because they've got land with some of their sewage treatment works where they can put generation, but they've got no way of doing anything with it. Conversely, they've got demand where they can't get generation, so they're a bit stuck with the physical constraints. So if we can find a good solution there, that will really help them. So in conclusion, so to 2050, so the things that we're doing, we're very committed to the UK's net zero carbon goals. We're pleased to be taking our own steps practically, and we're very much looking forward to using that experience with our customers. And we're doing it in a variety of ways. So, thank you very much.